To the US now, where it's the last weekend before Tuesday's presidential election. The two candidates have been crisscrossing the country and focusing on swing states that will determine who will become the 47th president of the United States. In Georgia's capital, Atlanta, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris repeated her pledge to be a president for all Americans. Later, she's due to attend a rally in Charlotte in North Carolina. Former President Donald Trump is also campaigning in North Carolina, which is marking its last day of early voting. He's promised to crack down on migration and cut taxes. So let's take a listen at what...
You can imagine in your mind the Oval Office, right? You can picture it. We've seen it on TV. So just imagine, if he is elected on day one, Donald Trump would walk in that Oval Office with his enemies list, stewing over an enemies list. When I am elected, I will walk in on your behalf with my to-do list. My to-do list. And at the top of my list is bringing down the cost of living for you.
I've come today with a message of hope for all Americans. With your vote on Tuesday, I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of massive numbers of criminals that have come into our country. And I will bring back the American dream. We don't have the American dream. We had it. We had it. You know, we also had energy independence 4 years ago. This is all you need to know. Kamala broke it. She broke it. We will fix it. I will fix it. It'll be fixed very fast.
All right, let's go to Maryland now, where US policy analyst Liz Schuelke is standing by for us in Baltimore. Liz, great to have you on the show. So 7 battleground states are essentially going to determine the winner of this election. What issue or issues will decide the winner, do you think?
At this point, the economy is always and has always been a central issue. I think there's also a lot of discussion about the polarization, and that's going to affect voters in different ways. Some voters want it to end, and some voters really resonate with the us versus them mentality. And I think lying in the wait that we're going to see come out incredibly strong for Election Day is women. I think women's rights has been boiling in the background for a long time. It's been a conversation topic from both campaigns, and it'll be really interesting to see how it breaks on Election Day.
Now, Liz, we just heard there before we went to you from former President Trump saying that the US had, quote, energy independence under his presidency. And he's suggesting that that's no longer the case under Biden's administration. Is this actually true?
Absolutely not. No matter how you define energy independence, which there is some debate if America ever had full energy independence, we do export more than we import and produce more than we spend, but we're still importing, and we were importing more during Trump. So no matter how you slice the definition, it was not more energy independent during Trump, and in fact, Biden has increased those measures of energy independence.
All right, that's good to have some clarification there. So, Liz, I probably don't need to say this to you, but US voters have been targeted with ads, interviews, podcasts, rallies, door knocking. I'd say it's pretty much impossible to avoid the election if you're stateside at the moment. How many people are really undecided at this point in the election campaign?
This is a really interesting question. And even if you go all the way back a year, how many were truly undecided then? It's always been the tiniest sliver of the pie that folks are fighting over. The Harris campaign has come out and said in the last week, late deciders in the last week have broken for Harris over Trump by 10 points, so by double digits. But I think a more interesting question has always been not who is undecided, but who's going to actually make it to the polls. As much as they're fighting over convincing people to vote for them, they're also fighting for their own voters to actually show up. And you'll see that in past elections, whichever candidate has more enthusiasm can win because their own folks are actually getting out and hitting the polls.
All right. Well, from the figures that we're seeing, more than 68 million people have already cast their votes, of course, in early voting. So do you think that does tell us anything about the expected turnout?
couple of cycles ago, I would have definitely heavily favored that for Democrats. They're known for their ground game, and to vote early typically means you have to have a strong ground game that reaches people where they are, gets them to the polls. There's just been a shift. Folks want to vote early. It's easier to vote early. It takes longer on election day to get to vote. So I am not sure I would say anything about voting early as far as which candidate will benefit the most from this, other than to say it's a great exercise of democracy. And I think making voting easier is always an excellent goal for Americans.
Absolutely. Now, if the election is as close as we're all predicting at this stage, how long do you think it will take before we know the winner? Now, this is $1 million question, but there is no actual $1 million going to be transferred over to you, just to make that clear, Liz.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah, unfortunately, no $1 million. I would say there's no way we're knowing Tuesday night. There have been some updates in how some of the states that have lagged in the past are voting those mail-in ballots, those early ballots. But also just the sheer volume. I remember Obama 2008, it was announced by 11 p.m. That's not happening. If we remember in 2020, it was not announced for almost a week, with some key states coming out on Thursday and Friday. So I would say buckle up. It would really depend on a couple key states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. If they count early, we might know sooner than several days after the election.
All right, we'll see whether your predictions are right. Of course, we don't have too long to wait, Liz. Great having you on the show tonight. Thanks so much for all your analysis. US policy analyst Liz Schuelke joining us tonight from Maryland.
Thank you.